Good afternoon, this is Media Center Ukraine Odesa, and we are starting today with the discussion of the School of Tour Guides for Internally Displaced Persons in Odesa. And our speaker is Oleksandr Babych, historian, head of the NGO Society and Historical Heritage. Good afternoon, Oleksandr. Good afternoon, the floor is yours. Yes, there is a project that was launched by our well-known foundation, Ukrainska Dusha, Ukrainian Soul. This is the biggest center working with the internally displaced persons. And these NGO organizes humanitarian aid, and it was offered to launch a project for better adaptation of people internally displaced to the Odesa region. It also includes the course for tour guides for such people. And I am sure that not all of them will get this knowledge for a future profession, but these are just people who are interested in the Odesa history, who want to be distracted from their problems, because we understand that they are in difficult conditions now, and this will allow for their mental adaptation, and also they will be able to learn something interesting, something new that they can use in future. So just from the scratch, a person can become a tour guide, and the course will take 4 months. Before the full-scale invasion, in my tour company Tudoy Sudoy and the NGO Society and Historical Heritage had 6 courses for different groups of tour guides. So, according to our experience, around 50% of our students, and this is quite a high rate, became tour guides. But we always saw a category of people who were interested in local history. They were interested in lectures, discussions. They wanted to learn more details about the Odesa history. And I hope that this time, out of 50 students that we are going to have, we have already 46 applicants. And I hope that we will get 4 more persons to have 50 in total. And I think that we can expect that around half of them will become tour guides. During 4 months, a person gets also an understanding what knowledge should be deepened. A person has 1 ready tour, and this is up for the person to get additional tours. So you now got 46 applicants. What regions do they represent? I'm not ready to name all of them. I know that we have quite a lot of people from the city of Kherson, from Mykolaiv, from Mariupol. So these are southern regions, and we understand that most IDPs in our region are those who had to move to Odesa because their cities and towns were occupied, and there are hostilities ongoing now there. And the list there, we will start individual interviews, and I think in a few days I will know much more about these people. And usually on the first day we disseminate questionnaires to get as much information as possible about people, about their professional skills, about their interest, etc. So this is the first feedback that we receive from our students. And people explain us what information they are interested in, and this is important because we can adjust our program. And are tours popular? under the conditions of the full-scale invasion of the war. Now we can see that we have electric buses, and we can see tourists in Odessa. And of course, this is not as many tourists as we had in 2021 and before the full-scale invasion. And of course, we have less tourists now because we don't have a lot of foreigners now in our city. And if we have foreign citizens, these are the people with professional mission, like journalists, representatives of NGOs, like peacekeeping organizations. There is no air connection. It is impossible to get to Odessa by sea. That's why we don't have so many citizens, so many tourists from abroad. And as for the IDPs here, they're quite active when it comes to city tours. These tour buses envisage a traditional route starting from the Primorsky Boulevard, a historical part of Odessa, and then Langeron. Do you open some new routes for people during your courses? One of the training stage is the proposal to all our students to think about their own excursion. During the first lecture, I'll say that they need to use their own professional skills because all of our students have their own background and profession. In any group, we usually have doctors, and those people who are professionals in this area can use professional terminology and can add some interesting information. And then I say, okay, you can make an excursion about the history of hospitals in Odessa and about the healthcare development in the Odessa region and in the south of Ukraine in general. We cannot forecast what people will think of when it comes to their own excursions, and I'm always fascinated by what they offer. And on the other hand, IDPs have a different perception of Odessa because there are some things that Odessa residents have been used to, and the guests of our city can see something different. And it is a very interesting experience for myself because this is the first. For the first time, we will have around 10 people from Odessans, and the rest of the students will be people who have newly moved to Odessa. So this will be something new, and I even cannot anticipate what discoveries we should expect from the group. What personal excursions have you been surprised? I cannot tell about this group. But from the previous experience, I can say that we had a teacher from Odessa Conservatory, and she made an excursion about Odessa musicians and artists for the last 200 years. And she's a professional singer. She's like an opera singer. And during the excursion, she was able to perform some songs from operas, and there was a wide range, starting from classic areas and up to Odessa chanson, Odessa songs. We also had people who were interested in art history. They were art historians, like Olga Potechina. She is quite an active tour guide now, and I am proud of the fact that she is a graduate of our school. And during her tour, she tells about Odessa artists that are not that famous, and she has a tablet with her to show their work. And she is also an artist, and she gives to the group usually her art pieces. The tours of criminal Odessa are quite popular. What is your attitude to that? First of all, we just need to accept the fact that there is something people are ready to buy. So there is a demand for such excursions, and quite often I also had such excursion, and as well as my company to do it because there is a demand for that among people. But now we have been working on changing the Odessa myths. And we have quite a prominent group of experts. These are art historians, philosophers, some people who are involved in tourism. We are supported by the tourism department headed by Ivan Leptuga. And we want to minimize the popularity of the excursion about criminal Odessa. Of course, we cannot forbid this excursion, this story, because that will not be efficient. We just need to create new products that will be more interesting than the topic of criminal Odessa. And if they will attract more tourists, more people, then Odessa will not be perceived solely as the city related to criminal and such criminals as Sonka Golden Hand and Mishka Yaponchik. And this is quite a difficult work, quite a difficult task to complete, because this is like a part of our mentality. But I think that quite soon the tour about Ukrainian Odessa will be as popular as the tour about Odessa crimes. Olga Patechina, your graduate, tries to show different, modern, contemporary Odessa in her tours. She tries to step aside of that criminal myth. She wants to change the traditional perception of the city. This is our general task, actually. The local authorities should also deal with that. And for example, if we will have the festival of some Odessa songs, and it not should be actively supported by local authorities, and that would have been better instead of having the support of mayor. The journalists should pay less attention to that topic. And I would recommend to journalists not to make interviews about Mishka Yaponchik, because quite often to increase the rating of some media outlet, they offer to discuss Katovsky as a criminal once again. So we just need to minimize the mentioning of these people. We should better tell about prominent Odessa musicians, scientists, doctors. We have a lot of prominent people, apart from criminals. Do you exclude in tours in your routes the infrastructure facilities that have been damaged by Russian attacks? We cannot do without them. For example, we always go along the Sabaneyev Bridge, because there is a beautiful part of the boulevard, and we can see clearly a destroyed house beneath the bridge. At the beginning of Preobrazhenska Street with beautiful architecture, and there is also the access to Zhvanetsky Boulevard. It is very popular among tourists. The 4 houses have been destroyed there, and all of them are architectural monuments and landmarks, and let alone the Soborna Square, because usually we used to start all our excursions at Soborna Square, and we need to change that because it is dangerous to be near the destroyed cathedral. And of course, the tourists that we have ask us about shelling, about injured and killed persons. So now it has become a part of our excursions. And I think that as any other city, affected by Russian orcs and by their shelling and missiles, Odesa should start developing the routes of so-called dark tourism. This is okay when it comes to the war and in the period after the victory. And these routes will be popular. Of course, it would be better if we can have as less such facilities as possible. And how do you think, should these destroyed houses be shown to tourists, including citizens, people from abroad? And I can say you that these places are more popular among the tourists from abroad. They want to better understand what is going on here. They want to see the evidence of the Russia being an aggressor state, destroying civilian houses. And several weeks ago, I had Japanese journalists who visited Odessa last spring, and the same outlet visited us again several weeks ago. These were quite interesting people. And the journalist, one of the journalists, resembled Murakami. And he wanted to see the places that had been recently struck. That was the Primorskaya Street, Preobrazhenskaya Street, the military ascendant, and they wanted to learn more about how many people had been affected, how many houses has been injured, and this will help them to explain to their citizens why they should support Ukraine. That these were civilian houses, no military objects and facilities were there, and they can see that with their own eyes, that there were no military units, no warehouses, and no air defense systems there. Do you have a lot of questions from the people coming abroad about dismantling the monument to the Odessa founders? I can say that during the first 6 months, they used to ask me whether we were going to dismantle it. And during that period, I had representatives of all top media, New York Times, Deutsche Welle, Le Figaro, and they asked a lot about the future of Odessa. And every time I told them that we were and are a democratic country, that even under the condition of the war has legal procedures, legal framework, and laws. And back then, we should wait for the decision of the municipal council about dismantling. Of course, we hate Russia, but even under such conditions, it is important for us to preserve our legal procedure, and we need to have a better understanding of what should be changed in our environment. They were surprised to hear that because they expect more radicalism, and I'm happy that Odessa demonstrated the gradual approach to that issue. First, we had sociological surveys, and then when we saw that the most residents of Odessa supported dismantling, that happened. After that, they also asked me about some rallies, people who were dissatisfied with the decision, and I was ready to discuss it because this is again normal because we have a tolerant society, we have different opinions, we listen to everyone, and then the majority makes a decision and the municipal council responds accordingly. Of course, we have questions, and recently there have been a lot of questions about Pushkin, about Duke, about Vorontsov, who just fall under the law about derussification. And we have been working on that. The city, the municipal council responds to that. And coming back to the tour guides for internally displaced persons, how people can apply to your courses. And the contact information can be found on the resources of these NGOs, Ukrainian Soul and Gostinna Hata. And we can also see the paper announcements on the doors of the centers that deal with internally displaced persons. And this is Richelievska on the corner of Zhukovska Street. And I do not want now to give my telephone number because I am not directly involved in dealing with applications. We have special people for that, and I am more responsible for organizing the training course itself. Thank you very much, Oleksandr, for joining Media Center Ukraine Odessa, and we will continue at 1 p.m. Thank you.